Okay. All right, I'd like to welcome you to the Regional Wastewater Reclamation Advisory Board Committee for Thursday, May 28th, 2026. And I'd like to go ahead and have a roll call, please.
All right. Anne Marie Wolf.
Here.
Claire Zucker.
Here.
Craig Canizzato.
Here.
Eric Sewald.
Here.
Kirsten Wainswick.
Here.
Matt Mathewson.
Here.
Becca Perez.
Here.
Scott Oldendorf.
Here.
Sheila Bowen.
Here.
And Steve Foley.
Here.
We are only missing a single member, so we have a quorum.
We're good. All right. Well, I'd like to go ahead and do our virtual meeting reminders. Please mute your microphones. This will help ensure that there's no feedback or background noises that may interfere with the speaker. If the committee member would like to speak or ask a question, don't forget to raise your hand. Use that feature on your computer. Remember to lower your hand once your question has been answered or you've finished speaking. When you're ready to speak, please unmute your microphone. And this is especially important during votes. And then mute your microphone again when you're finished. As a reminder to the audience members are only permitted to speak during calls to the audience unless called upon by the committee. And this meeting is being recorded to satisfy the open meeting law requirements. We will go ahead and move on to item D, Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag
Of the United States of America
and to the
and to the
republic
republic
for which
for
it
which it
stands,
stands,
one nation, under God,
indivisible,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I do hear somebody coming through on the microphone. I don't know if somebody's not muted. There we go. Okay. All right, excellent. The next item is call to the audience. Do we have any audience members that would like to speak? They're always so vocal.
I know.
You know,
We have so many.
Hardly
people.
hold them down. All right, we'll move on to item F, the safety share. Then we have a safety share for this year, this month.
Well, there's probably lots of safety shares, but one that is pretty appropriate. It's still been windy for a while. This time of year gets some winds and it was breezy this morning, so just be careful, you know, if you can wear glasses, you know, to help keep stuff out of your eye, and watch when you open and close doors, vehicle doors, building doors, so just slam on you or pull out or some of the strong things in the yard is pretty, but yeah, be careful with the wind and all the issues that come with.
I have a driving one
All right,
based on personal experience.
at least it's not about you falling down or anything.
No, I was getting stung by wasps. It's like, there's always something. But I was recently in Tennessee and the turn signals are at a different place with regard to the, the left turn signals with regard to the red light. And there was a moment where I triggered just like, oh, now it's time to turn. I didn't turn. I was fine. But it made me think that as we travel this summer, just be aware that you may be sort of like very certain when you're supposed to turn because it's before the red light or after the red light, and that's what you're used to, but it's really different elsewhere.
You don't pay attention to red lights, do you really?
I do. Don't you think that's a good one?
Yeah, very good.
I don't think I've heard that one, so, I'm all
That's a
for
good-
those. Anyway, any other people?
Yeah.
Piggyback on that one just
Okay.
a little bit. So we were driving up to Phoenix. My son was in the car and he had the map to drive, where we hadn't been before. And my husband was driving. And the map was telling him, turn here, absolutely turn here. Google was insistent. And if my husband had listened to him, he would have turned into the off ramp from the 202. Because Google Maps was straight up wrong. It meant have him turn at the next light, but for somehow the construction down there, it wasn't obviously, but it was obviously new and Google Maps hadn't. And I'm like, Luke, if you had been driving, like if it wasn't dad paying attention to the signs, would you have turned? He's like, yeah, mom, I probably would have. I'm like, oh my God. So, I don't know, it's just a warning. Google Maps with construction are still not, even when it doesn't look like it's there anymore, may still be wrong.
Yeah, how do you get that correct?
Wow,
I do not know, but it was freaky.
boy, these are good driving shares today.
I guess I'll piggyback on that one also. Increasingly, communities are doing roundabouts. So we all get hurried and rushing and everything like that. But you gotta be Johnny on your game, when you get into those roundabouts, to make sure that is it your, right away or is it their right away? You know, you gotta just watch yourself when you go into roundabouts.
Nice.
Good point.
All right. We're all gonna have a safe driving summer. Any other safety shares? All right, we'll move on to the rest of the meeting. I'm starting with the approval of the minutes. Did everybody have a chance to look at the minutes? Which are amazing as always. Thank you so much for putting those. Sheila, yes.
Yes,
Sheila,
good morning. Just on number H, item B, just if you could correct the spelling of my last name, that would be great. Thank you.
My goodness. Item B. Oh, I missed an E. Gotcha. Thank you. I missed an E.
Anything else? Okay, do I have a motion to approve?
I move
With
we
correction.
approve the
With
minutes
correction.
from last meeting.
With the correction?
Second.
We have a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
All right.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Any opposed? Nope. Okay, the motion passes and.
Actually,
we'll
I'll
approve the
abstain.
minutes.
I'll abstain since I wasn't here last month. Okay.
Okay.
Okay,
Did you get
Good to
that?
see you, Anne Marie.
Okay.
I gotcha.
All right. We'll move on to item H, and it starts with the director's report. Update.
Thank you, Claire. Good morning, everyone. And as always, thank you for donating your time to helping our department and helping the county. Much appreciated. I'm going to, my first topic, I'm going to talk a little bit about Roger Road. It's like, just amazing how much of my attention it's had in the last few months. But as you know, we shut down the Roger Road wastewater facility back around 2013, so it's been about 13 years ago.
Wow.
And the places like at Jurassic Park over there, you know, shrubs and trees and vegetation grow up wherever they want, the middle of the road, wherever. They just, nature reconsumes itself, I guess. And it's, you know, it was shut down and, you know, cleaned up and basically it's in good shape. We did do an evaluation of what it would take if we wanted to redevelop the property, which, you know, Kimberly Baeza has talked to the group about. And basically, we have two projects still remaining over there. One is, there's one area that has some buried asbestos pipe, and we will be removing that pipe. And then, and that's with grant funding. We're not paying for it. It's all fully funded. And then we have a couple, like 2 or 3 buildings that have some lead-based paint that's been identified, so that'll be removed. And that's it. And then, you know, we're trying to determine the best use of the property. Well, right now, the best use is thieves and graffiti artists and others like to go in there. And, you know, it's about a 45 to 50 acre site. And they cut through the fence almost daily to get access. We've actually had some trail cams that picked up vehicles driving, you know, after they cut the fence, driving through it and stuff. So it's not just like homeless people, but we have had homeless people in there that have made residents. And because we're there every day just to check on it, you know, it hasn't been too bad, but I am just surprised the amount of effort and trouble and risk that people go to try and pull a little bit of wire or find something of value up there, which there really isn't much. And for the amount of work they do, it's just ludicrous. So, you know, we continually repair the fence. And because there are vaults or underground places that they've been getting into to try and break into other conduits and whatnot to try and find wires and pull wires, you know, because they're running out of places to pull wire from, so the pickings are slim. But the vaults, you know, it's dangerous to get down in there. You don't know how is the quality of air? Is there enough oxygen? And different things just been sitting closed up for 13 years. So we actually brought in a bunch of like our scrap concrete slabs and stuff. And started putting slabs on top of manholes and vault doors, so they really can't get in now because, you know, it takes heavy equipment to move them. But there was one slab that probably weighed a ton or more, but somehow they got off and there wasn't any vehicle cracks, so I'm afraid to meet that person, whoever moved it. But it's a full-time job, it seems like, to keep that place, you know, contained and controlled, but, we will finish up our final cleanup, the asbestos pipe and the lead-based paint. But we don't like people going over there just because you never know who or what you're gonna run into. I think I mentioned we had one of our employees that, he was shot at, and he, you know, it was a horrible, scary situation. Nobody was shot or hurt, but he doesn't think they were actually shooting at him. He thinks that he surprised them and came upon them, you know, with power tools trying to cut access to wire or whatever they were doing. The guy pulled the gun out and they just wanted to get out of there. They had a truck on site. And so as they were backing up to get to their truck, you know, making sure that our guy wasn't gonna come attack them or try to tackle them or something, like, yeah, they had a gun. I couldn't imagine. But, the guy tripped or stumbled on as he was backing up, not watching where he's going. And so the gun discharged. So where the bullet went, we don't know. He said he wasn't pointing at him at the time, but it did discharge. And then that same employee, because he's one of the ones that primarily oversees that site for us, him and a partner were out there because we started going with pairs just because, you know, we're always encountering people over there. There was a guy sleeping down a stairwell that goes into a vault, and they left their phones in the truck while they were just walking around checking the site. So the one guy told the other to go get the phone, and I guess the guy heard. So while the one guy walked back to the truck, the other guy was standing there, and the guy woke up and, you know, started, what the hell, what's going on? You know, like he was bewildered, and he came running up the stairs and bear spray, had pepper spray or bear spray, and sprayed our guy with it. You know, he covered his face, but again, you can't make this stuff up. But, that's a pretty popular site, and so we'll be happy when we finish, you know, securing all of the vaults and all of the manholes, so they really just can't, there's not gonna be much else for them to do. And we'll further secure some of the buildings, you know, we've welded doors shut, but they'll bring grinding wheels or cut-off saws and they'll cut through welds, you know, they're spending, it's like they don't really care. And there've been, like I said, vehicles and stuff, and it's just amazing. And if you go over there and hung around for an hour, you'd see people driving by with a backpack, because that's where they have their tools, and you know, they're casing it to see if anyone's around, but sometimes they don't even care that people are there. We had a training, one of our, I think it was Golden Ranch maybe, was wanting to use some of our tanks or vessels for a training drill that they were doing. I don't know exactly what they were doing, but they, you know, they go into industrial sites is a good thing periodically for their training. It's an ideal site for some of that. And one of our county sheriffs showed up. He was asking where to meet him, and I told him where to go. I was over there at that time. And he said, yeah, he's just supposed to help him out, like a mock drill or something. And so there was sheriff, there was fire department. The two guys that usually go there and myself were there. And we had a contractor that was moving some concrete slabs. And three guys cut the fence on, and they had bicycles and came in, and I'm like, they could have to know there was that many people on site, but they still came in, and we called the cops when we saw them, but they took off and got away, but, just amazing. So I just always find it amazing the effort that they go through, and we're continuing to harden and make that facility less attractive, but it's still, we'll be happy when we figure out a use for it, and, you know, we have some scenarios and plans, and we also have been in conversations. Tucson Water, who has the Sweetwater facility and some of the recharge basins adjacent to it on the east side, you know, they'd like to pick up some of that property for their own future expansions. So all those possibilities are being evaluated, but in the meantime, we're just trying to keep the public out and wait till we can turn it into something. But that's really all I had, but it's definitely a pain in the rear.
Wow. Wow, that's pretty crazy.
And that's all I have.
All right, that's all for me. All right, thank you. We'll move on to personnel and key performance indicators, and that's
Oh,
all.
I do have more?
Yes.
I'm done. Okay,
I'm bringing it up.
and I always like going through our KPIs, especially for personnel, because that's a critical part of our business. So every month we go through these and, you know, this is, you know, the 12 months in the fiscal year. And so there they are, July through April. So there's what, 10 months up there right now, because it was through April. We haven't finished May yet. But you can see the line on the top with the 36, 33, 36, you know, right now it's up at 38 at April. That's the number of vacancies we have at the end of the month when we're doing our statistics. And it, you know, it doesn't tell the whole story, but you could see there was a 27 and a 28 a few months ago. I thought we maybe hit 25 or maybe 26 for a moment in time. But I think these statistics are taken at the end of the month. And so, you know, our goal is to be less than 5% be less than 5% vacancies, and we have, you know, 400 positions, so 20 vacancies or less would be ideal, where we think that would be reasonable. But you can see how much it changes, and as quickly as we were down to, you know, almost 25 vacancies, we hit a high of 45 vacancies just recently, but again, it ebb and flow as people retire or leave or go to a different department or whatever. You know, we're always hiring as quickly as we can. And that's another statistic I'll show here in just a minute, but basically that's our tracking of vacancies, and it's a critical issue because I've shown other slides and maybe it's on here. I don't know. Did we show the absenteeism or anything on this one?
There you go.
So besides vacancies, then you can see it's very small, but typically it averages somewhere over 13. Isn't that at the bottom that has the annual average? Yeah, down there. Let's see. Yeah, 13.2%, I think that says. That's our average vacancy. So if you look at you know, at some point we were almost at a 10% vacancy rate, and then a 13% absenteeism. That's 23% of the time we're short staffed here, or 23% of our staff are missing. That's a lot when you look at it. And then the other statistic is how many people we hire. What is that one?
That's under trending.
Is that
New hires is this one.
the total number for the year? That one, is that at the bottom or is it on the next slide? Oh, right there, that's it. So is there more to the right? You're gonna move out to the right.
No, that's it.
You gotta have a total column, huh?
This is the totals, but this is per year. Oh, sorry. This is
So,
the
well,
total for this year.
If you look at, you know, how many retirements and separations, or probably even better, new hires and promotions and then there's demotions and laterals, which are very few of, but, you know, right there in 25, 26, the current fiscal year of 10 months, we're at, you know, 47 and 34, that's what, 81, and then the 2 and the 1, that's like 84 to date, but we're almost always over 100 positions have been filled each year, which is promotions or new people coming into the department. And it's coincidentally usually close to 50-50. You can look back historically and it's close to 50-50 with an anomaly here or there. But also, so you have, you know, promotions are great, wonderful morale and career paths and stuff, but somebody's doing a new job and it takes a little bit to get familiar with the new role and responsibility. So you got over 100 positions with either new employees or promoted employees, and then the 23% vacancies and absenteeism. So to me, it's just amazing. We can do what we do all the time, keeping balls juggled. And hopefully, getting to our 5% goal will help us on that vacancy rate. That's our biggest push. And I just like showing these statistics because it's always an uphill pull to keep everything going. So, which one? I'm okay with that. With the vacancy level positions. So that's all I have. Unless there's any questions.
Are there any questions? All right. Thank you very much. And now we'll move on to the open meeting law. We have Cindy. Not sure how to say.
Win.
The win?
Win.
Win. Nice to meet you. And you're gonna be presenting. You wanna?
Yeah.
So here we go.
Have my turn.
Nope, I got her. And you're all set up? Here's my hour. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Cindy Nguyen with the Pima County Attorney's Office, and hopefully the folks online can hear me. I'm just going to do a very brief overview of open meeting law for everyone. Okay, so open meeting law, it's also called the Sunshine Law. It's pretty much having transparency in government actions, making sure that we're not kind of hiding behind the public and not sharing what we have in terms of information, et cetera, allowing the public to be heard and attend these meetings if they want to. Statutory requirements, I'm going to go through that. The meetings will be open to the public. I have more slides than I'll actually go through based on you guys having other things to attend to with the meeting. Notice and agenda requirements for meetings as well. Meetings have to be properly noticed. Notice to include an agenda sufficient to talk about topics that will be discussed at the meeting. And interpreting open meeting law, we usually want to interpret it in a way that's in favor of open and public meetings. And who must comply? Advisory committees such as this one would have to comply with open meeting law. And here, that's what I said here, basically advisory committees. And what is a meeting? A meeting is any gathering of a quorum in or through technological devices in which there's a legal action being proposed, discussed, deliberated, or taken. A quorum is the majority of the board or commission. Here we have a total of 7 of 13 committee members would be the normal quorum. Legal action means any collective decision, commitment, or promise made by the public body pursuant to bylaws, et cetera, laws of the state. And a meeting will also include an exchange of electronic communications. That's what people tend to forget. They forget about the emails that can be considered a meeting, even if it's not publicly taking place in person. That's similar to what I said there. There's exceptions with this as well. And some of this I'm going to scroll through. What I've basically talked about here, summarized onto a slide here. Open meeting law requires notice, agenda, public attendance, and meeting minutes. And notice here, we've kind of briefly talked about posting on the website, giving the public access, and pretty much information about where it's going to take place. At least 24 hours before the start of the meeting. It has to include the name of the public body, date, time, place, the agenda. Agendas have to have the specific matters listed. I know we've talked about this before in the past as well. Pretty much enough information to inform the public and the members about what will be taking place at the meeting. And very important that the public body only discuss, consider, and make decisions based on what's listed on the agenda. Sometimes agendas can have issues in terms of not being comprehensible with just a lot of acronyms, numbers, or things that would be confusing to members of the public. Current events, that's something that's also, that doesn't have to be very specific on the agenda. It's one of those things where you have to be considered about. Public attendance, the public has the right to attend, listen, tape, or videotape. There is no right to speak under the statute, so the call to public is optional. But I know that you guys have that as part of the meeting. Again, call to the public is optional. You can also place restrictions on that, time limits, etc. executive session. There are exceptions for when meeting business does not have to be in public, and that would be if it falls under one of these statutory exceptions, which allows you to go into executive session. Meeting minutes, that's the other requirement at the end I was talking about, in addition to notice, agenda. Minutes have to be kept and made available to the public, can either be written or recorded, available for public inspections. And again, some certain details have to go into the minutes, including date, time, and place of the meeting, members present or absent, general discussions, voting. And then also noting whether it was physical or participation by telephone, et cetera. Some pitfalls of open meetings and those being pretty much conducted are serial meetings, splintering, spoken wheel, emails, social gatherings. So I'll briefly go over those. So serial meetings kind of have one member communicating to another member who then goes and tells that information to another member. So even if you're not having a public meeting, you essentially at some point meet a forum where you're having discussion that's not taking place in public. That's something to keep in mind. Polling, same thing, where individual members go to other members and kind of have discussions. And at some point, it appears as if there's been some meeting that took place. So always avoid an appearance of impropriety. Spoken wheel, using staff, for instance, having your staff to go to each member and getting that information as a way to avoid having an actual meeting conducted in public. That's not allowed either. The bottom line pretty much is if you are not sure about what you're doing or you're having a forum of people, you're discussing things, just gotta be careful about what you're saying. Because we're trying to make sure that we're not buying open meeting laws, even without pretending to. Emails, I kind of mentioned briefly, but that's something that we see very often that could be a potential issue. When one member sends an email to all other members talking about something very general, and then reply all happens, and then there's a whole discussion that takes place online. People don't think about that as a meeting, but if you fit the requirements we talked about, forum, discussion, legal action, that type of thing, that is an issue. We like to always share this here, email equals evidence made available in litigation. So kind of always be careful and wary of sending an email where everyone is on it, because you can't control the reply all portion of it, where what people do, you have no control over. So if they respond all, and then other people respond, you just gotta be careful. There's a very good reminder that I see a bunch of folks have in the emails. To ensure compliance with the open meeting law, recipients of this message should not forward it to other members of the committee. Members of the committee may reply to this message, but they should not send a copy of the reply to other members. So I definitely highly encourage that if you're not already using that in your emails. That's a good way to kind of keep that reminder there. Social gatherings can become a meeting if we meet the requirements of the forum. And sometimes when you're in the same place as someone that you're in a committee with, people just kind of defer to business talk or talk related to the committee. It's just a thing that we do that's very common, but you have to be very careful about that. Even if you have the urge to talk about these certain matters, it can appear inappropriate. If there's like a possible quorum there, people can see you talking, thinking that you're doing some kind of shady business at a gathering. And penalties. I think this is important to kind of go through. Why do we care? Why do we want to make sure that we're not conducting any violations? Well, this can be a huge issue if there's an open meeting law violation, there's an investigation, a court can get involved in it, order that we comply with the open meeting law, not to mention the actions if they were not ratified, which I didn't go through, but if you kind of conduct any kind of vote that didn't follow open meeting law, then that means the action is null and void. Also, civil penalties can happen with open meeting law violations. And you can also have, if you have court cases, you have fees. You can even if court can even get involved and remove you from the office. So you don't want any of that. And the bottom line is just to focus on transparency, just kind of keep in mind where you are, what you're saying, and just making sure that there is no potential violation or anything that can be construed as a violation. I know I talked really fast just to give you guys an overview. There are also the resources here and other things on your slides if you want to carefully read through them. That's
Thank you. Thank you very much. Anybody have any questions or comments? All right. Thank you very much. We will move on to,
Yeah.
what's that?
Oh, he just wanted a copy. I don't.
Oh, yes, yes. So we'll move on to, item number 4, which is the continuing discussion. Art Curon is here.
He's on.
Oh, great.
Take it
And
away, Art.
yeah.
Thank you. Good morning,
continuing
Chair,
discussion
members.
in the financial plan.
Sorry, I'm sorry, but jumped the gun there. Good morning, Chair and members of the committee. I just do have a brief update today. We don't have a financial plan as yet, but we are getting closer. We received the updated cost estimate to move from an 8 million gallon per day to a 6 million gallon per day facility on May 14th. We are continuing to work on that scenario for presentation to county admin and to the finance subcommittee. We had staff that was out of the office last week combined with the Memorial Day holiday. But we should have that wrapped up end of this week or beginning of next week for county administration review. At that point, we'll be able to evaluate further all of the scenarios that we have been presented and determine which scenario is best to move forward with inclusion in the financial plan. And then we can move forward to adopt that financial plan probably in time for the June meeting, which is I think June 25th, maybe. So that's the update that I have at this particular moment. We're close, and we should be able to make some more final firm decisions here in the next month.
So, am I correct that you explain a little bit more? You got the go ahead for the 6 MGD plant?
No, so what we received was the revised estimate to move down to a 6 million gallon facility. And we're taking that cost now and incorporating that into the rate workbook scenario to figure out, okay, what does that look like? How would that fit in? How does that change the numbers? What impact does that have on the debt issuance? And so that's the scenario that we're currently modeling now with the revised cost. And there it was some savings over the 8 million gallon facility.
And so, but you're still considering the 8 MGD, you're just looking at both, correct? Or?
Yeah, well, we have the scenario for the 8 million gallon facility. So that is,
Okay.
at this point, it's going to be an operational decision between which size the department decides to go to and the county ultimately decides to go to. I think there's, and I'll defer to Jackson here, but I think there's a lot of different scenarios that are still being played out from an operational perspective as far as capacity. And so we've been asked to model this, and we are moving forward in that direction.
Okay, thank you. Jackson, do you want to comment on that before we go to Matt's question?
Well, let's let Matt ask you a question, because I'll answer it if I speak right now, and it would look like we've rehearsed or something. So we'll let Matt answer.
Okay, I guess that's my turn, right?
Mhm.
So, I was reading the paper this morning and saw that the Board of Supervisors has now approved the tentative budget for the upcoming fiscal year. That happened at Tuesday's meeting. And I've been participating with this committee in one capacity or another, probably for close to 30 years now. And it seems like the goal has always been to have a financial plan to send to the board before they act on budget approval. So, we can give them a little help in deciding, where taxes and rates and costs and expenses and everything need to be coming in for the coming fiscal year. And it bothers me that we don't have or didn't have a plan to send forward to them. You know, I might ask another senior member of the committee, Anne Marie. I know she's always been highly involved in our financial planning, and whether I'm off base at all, or whether it's something to be concerned about, or, you know, I know we're not having a new rate increase this year, but we're having a rate increase, and we've had times in the past where we haven't had rate increases, like 7 years in a row, yet every year we've produced a financial plan. It just seems like that's something that we've let the board down on by not pressing forward with it this year.
Anne Marie, would you like to comment?
I'm just wanting to support Matt that his memory is correct on that, that is how we've, over the 30 years that I've been associated as well, that's how we've usually functioned in the past. So I'm just supporting Matt's comment.
Jackson, would you like to speak to that, or Art?
I'll defer to Art on that one. You know, the financial plan comes out of his office, so.
Yeah. I don't really have anything to say. I mean, we're working based on the requests of this committee and the scenarios and the number of scenarios that came out with regard to this particular facility, and the timing it took to get that final scenario from the 8 million gallon to the 6 million gallon. But they just say where we are today. I can tell you that there was a year in 2017 where a financial plan was not put forth and was not put out. I don't know the reasons for that. I don't know why. I don't know what the circumstances were, but it's not unprecedented for this to happen. And, you know, the financial plan is just a guide for where we think we're going to be in the future. And I think it's more prudent to be accurate as we can be in that financial plan based on what we think is going to happen with construction, with the size of the facility, with the design of the facility. And so sometimes I think it's okay to be more prudent than not just to say that we put out a financial plan that may not be accurate or we may not feel is likely to occur. And so, you know, we're adhering to what we've always done. There were a number of scenarios that took time to get back, and it's an evolving process with a facility this size.
I will comment if I can. So, you know, and I'm not defending having a financial plan or not having one, but, you know, we went through a fair amount of effort to get to having a cost estimate for the Santa Rita Resource Recovery Project facility project. And we have the, you know, I think it's $340 million out there for the pipeline and for the facility. And initially, when we first started throwing budgets together, when it was just a concept of an idea, we threw out $240 million, I think, from, you know, some of our own internal expertise and history, which didn't prove to be as expertise as we'd like, because once we got people on board and we had some professional estimating, it went from 240 to 340, and we felt that was a much more realistic number with the vagueness of exactly what we're gonna put in or where we're gonna put it. I mean, sure, we have a 50-acre property, but which route is the pipeline gonna run? And, you know, what kind of conflicts are you gonna run into? So we were happy with that, and using that value, we came up with this 4 years of rate increases. And to correct Matt, it wasn't 7 years, it was 8 years without an increase, 8 consecutive years. And finally, I think, I don't know if it went into effect August or September of last year, but that was our first rate increase in, I'll say August of 25. and that was for 3%. And we agreed to go with 3 more consecutive years of 1.75%. And then, time passes and we continue to try and fine tune exactly more detail about what exactly is gonna happen. And as you do, you refine your cost estimate, but we could change that cost estimate every quarter, every 6 months if we wanted to. But right now, it seemed like in discussions between Art and his team, myself and the wastewater team and county administration, that we thought, let's leave these already approved rate increases alone. Let's not go back and say, hey, let's change that 1.75 for this year to 2.5, or, jumping around. It just would seem like if we're in a chaos and not really controlling where we're headed, we know the price will change. And so we've decided in wastewater in all of our evaluations that, and with, our kind of a planned agreement with the town of Sahuarita, that we're not gonna need an 8 MGD facility. We think 6 MGD is sufficient. And with that 25% reduction in size, we thought, well, there's gonna be a savings from that, but it's not gonna be 25% savings. It's not linear on those facilities, but maybe it's 15%. We got a number back on that update that's maybe 5%, way less than we thought it would be, but it also may take into account other factors, inflationary pressures or other risk factors that are still out there. And we haven't even finalized a technology. We haven't picked the route of the pipeline, all these things that still have a big variability. And we haven't, not only have we not started down the design path, but we haven't, and then at some point you do value engineering to find additional ways to save money. And so we're still far removed from it. So we don't want to just keep going up and down and, hey, let's run to the board this year and we'll skip next year. And it just seems like we're shooting in the dark. So let it be. I think this is at least a reasonable place to stand. Now, as far as how that relates to the financial plan, that's for your guys' discussion and Art's input, but we don't see any significant changes with what we're at right now. But by the time we would get at least to the 30% engineering effort is coincidentally going to be very close to when these existing 4 consecutive years, one of which is already in place, of the rate increases that are approved. So let's let the 2 paths, align, and then we'll say, oh, now it's much clearer. We need to have another rate increase of whatever size, or hey, coincidentally, we're lucky and we're right in the right place. So let's just keep going with what we have. So I just am kind of chiming in that, as Art mentioned, the financial plan is an estimate or kind of a summary of where we're going, but there's such a big cost looming out there that we don't have enough information for, and tomorrow isn't going to give us a whole lot more data. Let's wait a little while before we really try and chart another course and really update a financial plan to align with that big investment that we're gonna make. Because we've been, we had 8 consecutive years with no increase, and, inflation, we did have a few years of some really high inflation, but we were at reasonable inflation and all the efficiencies and defeasance and all the things we do. It's been a great ride, but, reality set in. At some point, inflation's gonna control the cost of your business, and, we're not even asking for rate increases that are aligned with the inflationary rate. So more likely there's going to be some future rate increases, but let's get better numbers on our big investment down in the Sahuarita area, and let's see how we do. But that's my soapbox for today.
Makes sense. Eric, you had a question, and then you also, Kirsten.
Thank you, Jackson, for your comments. Appreciate that. And Jaime, I appreciate the fact that the RLB report we could look at. From my perspective, and I'm a newbie on this committee, I've only been here a couple of years. But I think the things that have come to mind to me is the last time the sewer wastewater folks had a big program was wrong. And that was a $600+ million job. Now we're into a new program where we have who knows what the cost is going to be. I've seen these numbers ratchet around. This is like, if you go to a bar and want to play darts, you don't want to play with me because I'll hit everything but the dartboard. And the challenge for me is twofold. One, we have a certain set of parameters that we have agreed to, or guardrails, of how we will extract funds to do our business. And those are telling us that we can only pay this out over a 15-year period. This puts a constraint on us. We also look at what is the volume you need to satisfy the needs, not the wants, but the needs of the area. And 6 million could very well be that number. But as we go through this, none of us have any solid numbers. We are working in an ocean afloat, and it could be that life raft or this life raft in which we're pulling from to get the idea. The concern to me is that we need to be responsible to our ratepayers. They look to us to provide a convenience. We need to be able to price it at a reasonable level. And I'm not sure we're going to get to that point with how we're moving right now. And I think that it will come about, I guarantee you. But I'm not sure at this point in time. Am I comfortable with it? No. I've got questions. I continue to pick up questions. I'm not an engineer. I'm just a lone citizen in the wilderness falling out. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. Kristen?
I was just gonna say, just a couple things, mostly observation, louder, okay? I'll try and let that coffee get my volume on here. I mean, strong coffee. So the first, I think that, what Matt is kind of getting at, the root of that discomfort, is kind of the purpose of the committee, right? It's twofold. The two main purposes, if you go back to the statute or whatever it is for the committee to review the CIP plan and to review the financial plan. And so CIP plan is out there, financial plan is lagging. So the observation is valid that we're in a bit of a discomfort. And that's the root of it, is the purpose of the committee to do those things. All the reasons of why we are where we are, notwithstanding. I think the next part that is encouraging is that I think I heard Art say that he's on the verge of having some kind of plan. Not that we're not going to get one, it's just coming late. So I'll pitch that back to Art just a little bit. I'm curious, my question in a moment that you can address is, does that mean that we'll have one by, say, the June meeting? And should we have a financial subcommittee meeting in order just to look that over? But as Art also has mentioned, and what the financial subcommittee is hearing, is that they're working very hard to stay within the budget, to work with county administration on 25 years amortization versus 15, kind of all those things without raising rates. So we're still working. We're a little behind. I don't think we're not going to have one, if I'm hearing that correctly. It's just we're late. But we may still have one on the table without raising rates. So, well, I think we're getting there. We're just not quite there yet.
Yeah.
With some good reasons.
And
And then my last point, that this is just a pen. I just want to get it in everybody's ears. Jackson has brought up many times that the county does not have a year-over-year rate increase on the books for whatever, 1%, 3%, anything to keep up with inflation. And that has never been considered. This rate increase was sort of a little bit of that, and also absorbing Sawadita. Yes, the numbers were kind of low. I think this committee has a little work to do, not this cycle, but I think we have some work to do to consider that, and consider looking at, there's a lot of utilities out there, Tucson Water being another one, I think, Claire, that I've heard, that are looking at year-over-year rate increases. I think the optics of that are a lot easier to sell than the optics of, now let's quickly do it because we had, kind of some finance. So I just want to seed that for a future, maybe next fiscal year discussion when we get past this, so the optics are different. But I think that it is valid with the cost of inflation, with the cost of chemicals, that we should look at that. So I will yield to Art to answer my question about timing of your efforts.
Thank you, Kirsten. So yes, my opening comments were, we certainly can have a financial plan for this committee's review at the June meeting, but that would mean, certain decisions would need to be made by the financial subcommittee and subsequently county admin in advance so that we could have final numbers to be presented to you in that financial plan at the June meeting. I certainly think that's feasible. And, we could convene the financial subcommittee before then if this committee decides it does want to put together a financial plan. Finance stands ready and willing to meet that deadline, that June deadline, pending certain decisions from county admin and the financial subcommittee on what scenario. If between now and then there are additional scenarios that are requested to be modeled, that's obviously going to delay the timing, especially given the multiple layers of review that these rate workbook scenarios go through with this committee and county admin. But we stand ready and committed to be able to deliver that financial plan pending decisions by the next meeting in June.
I just like to state that I'm not uncomfortable with this direction or the pace that's being taken. And I just thought I'd say that, as a different point of view. I think there were some pretty strong curveballs thrown with the change of the Santa Rita plant financing and the contributions of the town of Santa Rita. I think that rushing through to meet what I consider, although consistent deadlines from the past might not be reasonable in this scenario. I don't know about the availability of people to meet in the finance committee in the month of June. A lot of people are not here. We're not having a meeting in July. So what if it doesn't go through in June? When does it then take till August? And so I just think that while the precedent is really important and this discussion is really good, I also think we need to realize that we are at a different juncture than we have been in past, 10 years. So that's just my point of view.
Okay.
Sorry, this may be a little bit of a tangent, but seems like it's related. We've been talking a lot about Santa Rita resource facility scenarios, but primarily focused on flow volume. Sorry. Primarily focused on flow volume. And I just noticed that all of the scenarios have the same treatment technology listed. Has there been discussion or review of pros and cons of different treatments, or advanced treatments? Just thinking about emerging contaminants and what is the ultimate fate of this water, especially being in the upper watershed of our larger basin. So just curious, when had that been had? When would be the best time to review that in terms of what is the impact on the financial plan?
Good question.
Just kind of background questions in my head.
I'll go ahead and Jaime can tell me to shut up when he's ready, but, right now we're out there advertising for design firms for both the pipeline and for the facility. And that's a critical next step. And so it's out there being advertised. I think maybe we'll have one selected and launched late this calendar year, October, November. I don't know, what the timing is exactly, but that's when we'll get somebody on board. But we have much more to dive into. Like, for instance, we already have like 3 preliminary routes of where to run the pipeline from Green Valley to the new property where this Santa Rita facility will be. And they all, we need to go find out what the conflicts are, what's the land issues, all these things that will hopefully drive us to the best one for the various reasons, the pros and cons. And then the same for the facility. We're pretty sure we know the size. We can't say for sure we know the technology. We internal from board direction and our own desire to try and be the most energy efficient and carbon neutral, you know, all those wonderful goals. But I can guarantee you, some of those sound great, but they're gonna add to the price. And so we're gonna have to go through iterations of pros and cons of the various aspects, and emerging contaminants is another great one, making sure the technology is flexible enough to be able to treat additional things or modify itself if need be. And that's what you get into when you get the engineers on board. And so we can speculate and talk about it. You know, we have technical experts and we can talk till the cows come home. But we're not gonna be able to put to where it impacts the financial plan or our ultimate direction until we get that firm and they pull all these thoughts and have these discussions and workshops to get those decisions made. So I don't know if that answers your question, but we're, you know, we will be doing all those things, and we already have to some extent. But, you know, we picked a estimate right now that's out there that we think is in the ballpark, but it may be come in below that, it may come in above that. And then we go through, once all that's decided, then we go through value engineering and find the best way to do it to, again, try and keep the budget within reason to limit our impact to our ratepayers and stuff. But I mean, I don't know if I missed any aspect of that.
You go right there. The very original cost estimate was accounting for 3 technologies. All of them are capable of handling what's on the requirements right now and be adjusted to future emerging content. So all 3 are good. The original estimate was 3. So we basically took of the 3, the most economical that meet all our requirements, and we focus on that. So the later cost estimates for the facility, which are planning estimates, educated estimates, guesses from experts in the industry who have built similar facilities on similar size, taking that information of what they learn and what those have us to use in our planning estimate. So we don't have a plan set to estimate to. We focus on MBR. That technology is good enough to handle all the existing contaminants plus future, be adjusted to future contaminants. So we're thinking that MBR is a potential technology we'll focus on. We don't want to close the door. The engineer that selected may come up with a great idea, great technology, and we want to leave that door open. We don't want to just tell them what we want. We want them to tell us what we need, and we can handle them, and there will be something better for us out there. So the later recent estimates are using MBR as a technology, but we're not closing the door for other possible technologies out there. So that's what the latest number came from. So I don't know if I think that.
So what I'm hearing is there's still future discussion to be had.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, sounds like.
Yeah, that, I really do think it's iterative. And so when we get this financial plan and maybe it goes through in June, maybe it's August, that the whole thing is going to be reconsidered next year as we move forward and have better estimates. So I just think that I just think it's a process, and we're in that process, and we may not be making all our deadlines right now, but over time, I think it'll all.
Thanks for the clarification. I mean, as a newbie, I'm even newer than Eric, so just wanted to make sure I didn't miss anything or where we are in that process, but sounds good. Happy to wait for when we get to that point.
But that's why we're hesitant, you know, we've got some rate increases that help keep us going in the right direction, maybe not enough. But let's let that go while we continue this process and get further refined and make the decisions as we go. But let's not change, you know, now and then 6 months from now, change again, you know, go back and forth. It just looks like we're out of control, you know, with the latest flavor of the mid-year point or something. So that's all I'm saying.
Are there any other discussion or comments to be made? Yes, Kirsten.
So, as the chair of the financial subcommittee, I'm clear, not your opinion notwithstanding, I would love for us to meet, if at all possible, I would love for this not to be another year where we don't have a financial plan, whether it's in June or July, just to get one on the books, recorded. I think that that is good because it does meet basically our statute and reason for being, just so that something is recorded. I'll just put that out there. And then I have a question for Jaime about the rate increase. I have about the RLB report, just 2 questions.
Louder, please.
Okay. One of them, Jaime, I think I was seeing that, the latest estimate, did it cut solids handling, on-site solids handling out, that last one, so that you'd be trucking solids? That's one question. And the other is, I know that you said that it's, a better estimate. Do you have a class on it? Is it like a class 4, basically? Do you know what that is?
To your first question, the 8 NGD to 6 NGD was a kind of borderline.
Mhm.
We have solid handlers inside,
Okay.
and the 6 NGD is small enough where it's not cost effective potentially. So we're basing our estimate on not having solid handling facilities on site.
And it would be trucked here to Trace Rios, kind of like Agro Valley?
We'll probably have a disposal location.
Okay.
And then we'll take it from there, probably back from maintenance to one of the others.
Understood. And this is, obviously your design engineer will help you even figure all that out. This is just to get something on the books and get something in the ballpark.
And
get
then your
that.
second question, it's a class 5. It's very clear.
Class
Planning-
5 still. Okay.
Planning estimate is our expert opinions from engineers and contractors who have built similar facilities elsewhere. And using that information, dollars per gallon or dollars per square foot, using that basic information, they're using it as a basis for customizing that number to our Southern Arizona costs.
Yeah.
Very general. And as we get to design and 30%, we'll have a set of plans that they can put a number to and be more solid. But right now we're using best information available.
Okay, so those numbers that were sent in that summary email, that's the baseline without the plus 100 minus 50, that's the baseline. And I think the counterpoint to the rest of the committee who's not an engineer is just remember that that's a baseline cost estimate in engineering. And so don't be surprised if it goes up, because typically class 5, it has that bracket around it, like we talked about before. So again, it's all iterative, it's all in process. And so those are just observations. Thank you.
So it sounds like you would like to move forward with a finance subcommittee meeting this month
Yeah,
and
and
try and
we'll-
get that wrapped up.
If I may speak, it wouldn't do us any good to plan a meeting and schedule it
No.
if Art does not have the financial plan available for us to look
Yeah.
at.
Right.
So I would propose waiting until Art lets us know that it is available, and then I will send out the email.
Okay.
Yeah,
Sounds
figure
good.
it out.
Eric, you had another comment.
Again, Art, Jackson, thank you. I look at this as a funnel. We're at the top of the funnel trying to get to the bottom. Right now, we have this ring of different numbers, different thoughts, different ways. And until we get to the bottom of the funnel, we're not gonna have those exact numbers. And I fully understand that. And it's important that we all understand that as we move forward, we're gonna refine, and refine. The crux of the problem for my case was, in January, we found out that the price that we had been talking about before had now increased dramatically. And so, and the finance committee, we wanted to look at that. Art brought out the new draft rate book at our meeting. Whoa, we now have a potential rate increase. Okay, why? Well, we have to be able to pay for this. We have a 15-year window that we pay things for, and we have to raise rates to do that. We, on the other hand, at the committee said, are there other options? Can we go to 25 years to pay it off? Can we stretch out the program a little bit? And those are the questions that were coming from the finance committee to Art and Jackson and Jaime, is how can we maneuver this to set an even plate? We still haven't gotten to that answer. And that's where I'm confused, or at least left in the wilderness, wondering how are we going to lump this all together so we have a very smooth, even road ahead of us moving forward. And there are, to me, there are too many variables at this point in time to make a very coherent decision on how we should move forward. And I feel for you in the position you're in and trying to get all these moving parts together. For the department, you're in the same boat because you don't know until the engineers have laid out their vision of how these plant and the conveyance and all of that's gonna work. It's just, for me, it's just plain frustrating. And I will say that out loud, and I might be a broken wheel, but I'll keep thumping along as we move forward.
Thank you. Any other comments? Well, thank you, Art. I appreciate your time and everybody's attention to this matter. It was a very good discussion this morning. We'll move on to the election of officers. Did you want to talk about that?
Yep.
Jeanette?
All right, so it's that time of year again. We're going to be electing a chair and vice chair for the main committee. We also need to bring up the financial subcommittee. It's been a year since Kirsten took the chair position on that. Craig Canizaro was just recently elected chair of the CIP subcommittee. So we're going to leave that one until next year. So we have the main committee and the financial subcommittee. Kirsten, I believe, is still willing to chair the financial subcommittee. If anybody would like to self-nominate or nominate somebody else who is on the committee, those committee members, I will be sending out an email. Just respond to me if you have any nominations. And after, say, a week, I will send that out for voting to each of you. Same principle with the main committee. Claire has offered to remain as chair. Scott has offered to remain as vice chair. Anybody else would like to nominate somebody or self-nominate, I will be sending out an email. You can respond to that. And after a week or two for responses, I will send out the voting email. So we should have all of our election results available for the June 25th meeting. Any questions? So we're just going to do it via email like we've been doing it for the last few years. That seems to work with confidentiality and everybody responding. Does anybody have any questions or concerns or would like to try something else? No? Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll move on to the period expense and revenue summary. We have David Sickley, and we had a new version sent out this morning.
Hey, everybody. David's not here. I will be covering this today. I'm Nick Dominguez. I am a supervisor over here at Wastewater. So I will quickly talk through if we want to, if someone can share the summary.
I will share it for you.
Great.
I can share it for you if you just give me 2 moments. And I will be sharing the revised one that I sent out this morning. If it opens, there we go. Oh. Sorry, my computer is going a wee bit slow.
No worries. I wasn't sure if I could share, so this works. Okay.
All right. Here we go. Let me make it a little bit bigger for everybody. Okay. Can everybody see that?
So thank you all for the time. I'm going to quickly talk through period 10 results here. In general, wastewater is on track to meet the majority of your budget expectations. Starting with personnel, the department continues to see some vacancy savings, as we had discussed earlier, due to retirements and some ongoing turnover. In the spring, we allocated 1.5 million of these position savings from Appropriation 1 to Appropriation 2. While we've moved the funds to cover the anticipated spending in '02, we also did not budget for prior year building permit refunds. So that could result in an additional, about 400K bottom line impact. But we have a plan to cover that with a budget authority request if necessary. In terms of revenue, the department is again mostly on track. However, as we know, the biogas unit has ceased operations for the remainder of the year. This has pushed our forecast down about $3.2 million, and we only expect to earn revenue on gas that was generated prior to the shutdown. So that's where that you can see in that projected forecast, we're down to $440,000 in expected revenue. Although this has, as you can see, significantly impacted our forecast, we still expect our actual earned revenues to still be about 98% of the adopted budget estimate. So still clearing a good amount, and expect to have a healthy bottom line. With these results, the debt ratio also remains under the threshold at 1.32, but we should also be sure to keep an eye on this key ratio as we close out the year. Those are the big hits. If there's any questions or concerns, happy to address those or take them back for further discussion.
We have a hand raised. Matt, did you have something too?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. For some reason, I have a vague recollection of asking this question before, and if I have, I apologize. But in the far right-hand column of the table, we're looking at the variance and comparing the projected forecast against the adopted budget. I'm wondering why we don't compare it to the revised budget rather than the adopted budget, since we took a step to revise the budget, at least for those top two line items in the table.
I'm not sure if I have a solid answer for you, honestly.
Sorry, let me
Yes, sir.
answer for you. Sorry, my camera is not doing very well today. That's a very good question. And I did, when I reviewed it, I was thinking about that. And I think it could have just been maybe a preference thing at some point, but I think what we can do is next time is do it compared to the revised budget. I think that would make more sense, honestly. So I apologize for that, but yeah, it makes sense to me too. And I should have changed it when I thought of it, but I didn't.
Thanks, Meredith.
Okay.
Did you want to add to that, Jackson?
No, I was just gonna say, I mean, it's the same dollars, it's just we've moved monies around because we're under in one section and over in another, and so, yeah, following the revised budget, because they are the same total dollar amounts, makes more sense. Because then they're, I mean, that's just the normal, when we set a budget, it was the best estimate at the time, and hey, we were over in one area and under in another. Same outcome, and it's a lot easier to explain if you follow the revised budget.
Right. And I think this was this may be the first month that we put the revised budget in, because I think we don't, until later in the fiscal year when maybe there have been some changes made. So yeah, we'll be sure to correct that going forward.
And you had a question, Scott?
Yes, you had mentioned, and it's kind of open to anybody here, but he made the comment of the biogas was shut down for the remaining of the year. I didn't know about that. What happened?
Yes, we had a ferrosort tank that, while the plant was down, oxygen kept feeding in there, and it resulted in an exothermic reaction that basically built pressure and temperature in the tank and caused the tank to warp and blow the mantle off. And so we're going to have to replace that tank, and there's two tanks in that process right there, and we probably could run with one But once again, every time we go back and layer the onion, we find that, the proprietor, the engineering firm that designed that facility, they didn't provide us all of their code and all of their information, and we want to look through that level of detail to make sure, why was oxygen still flowing into the tank? It should have shut off. So we're diving in for more information. We're not gonna start running with just one tank until we get some of that information. But once we have information and we're satisfied, we can start back up at any time. But we are gonna replace that tank. We filed an insurance claim for the incident. It's $100,000 deductible, but it could be $1 million repair. So it'd be nice to get, we believe it's an optimistic opportunity to get reimbursed. But there's also a component of that insurance coverage that says we're putting in for it, and we could qualify to receive lost revenues from that time too. But all that stuff won't get settled till next fiscal year, so it doesn't matter, we need to deal with our business right now, of course. But all those things are in place, but yeah, we had this is the second, I'll call it an explosion at that plant that, really, we just need more information, and it's hard. The company that designed it, they're leaving the United States and going a different direction in Europe or somewhere, and so we're scrambling to make them give us stuff before they nearly impossible to get a hold of.
And when did this happen?
Last month.
Yeah, they spoke about it last month.
Seems like we're having a lot of tank explosions in America.
Yeah, in America, there's a number of them on the news.
I think he discussed that.
Nobody was hurt. That's the main thing.
Question.
All right,
Eric has a question.
Eric.
Yeah, under projected financials, the difference between the expense and the income is about 25 million. Is that money being used for defeasance then? Is all of it being used for defeasance, or some of it set aside for future need?
Michelle, are you
Don't
Are you on
everybody say that.
Nick, do you want me to address that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
please?
Everybody, yes, a portion of that is used for the defeasance. The amount that we defeased in fiscal year 26 was about 20.5 million. The other piece that doesn't show on here are operating transfers. The department also has some commitments to transfer funds to other departments. So it's a little bit less than it shows here as the net. But yeah, 20.5 million was used for defeasance, and there was another almost 600,000 that are operating transfers.
Thank you.
All
Thank you,
right,
Michelle.
any other discussion on this item? All right. We'll move on to the financial subcommittee report. Kirsten?
Sure. So this financial subcommittee met on May 14th. And our first order of business was that Jaime gave us an update on some background information that we had requested. He went over a CIP program strategic plan update. A memo dated 3/27 was provided to the committee. The committee appreciated that background. It's just documenting some of the root assumptions for pieces of the overall Santa Rita program. And the committee recommended that be sent out to the full RWRAC, and Jeanette will do that, I believe, today or tomorrow or something like that on our behalf. And that's just for information on some of the other ancillary things that the department and how they're handling those items. So look for that. Also, Jaime updated us on the DMA, the designated management area revisions undergoing the PAG 208 process for the town of Sahuarita versus the Pima County wastewater service area. They're redrawing those maps and renegotiating those agreements long-term. That's still in process. There is an open request that when things get more finalized, that come to us so we understand kind of what's in and what's out on the county service area side. As of that date, there was still no rate workbook available. The subcommittee did lightly discuss ongoing efforts to structure the CIP versus the funding of the Santa Rita and rolling all that into a rate workbook. Art let us know that he had literally just received the program manager's cost estimate for that 6 MGD, which was one of the 4 that was sent to the committee recently. But he had just received that, so he hadn't had a chance to run a rate workbook and understand the implications of it. And as he mentioned, he's still working on that. So the subcommittee just left it open that we generally would like to continue working with Art and the department to see that rate workbook when it becomes available, as I mentioned earlier today. And also, I think it's noteworthy that the financial subcommittee members generally continue to voice support for a 24 amortization for the program specifically, because that is one way that seems to sit well with many members on the financial subcommittee of trying to get this in. So I know that's a piece that is under negotiation with county administration, but if it helps your negotiation to know that your financial subcommittee seems to be accepting that, that may be, I don't know, a little help. So with that, that's all. And as we mentioned, if the rate workbook comes available June, I don't know, even in July, just let us know. We'll meet and look it over. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. The CIP subcommittee report?
So we didn't meet.
Good report.
I like those kinds of reports.
Set up a meeting, so I'll get with, see what the times are, we usually set that like that.
Okay, it's usually in the spring.
All right, and then finally, the System Water Advisory Committee report, which is me, since I am now the representative official, right?
Official.
I went and got notarized, so I should be official. The meeting started out with the director's report, as it does every time. The meeting of the System Water Advisory Committee for Tucson Water was held on May 6th. Part of the director's report was talking about the public hearing May 19th, was scheduled for May 19th to hear the about the rate increase. I'm not sure how that went, but I'm sure there was thousands of people there just for our public hearings. And then he also gives a report on the Colorado River. And there was a late snow. I don't know if any of you are aware of that was helpful, but it's still very unpredictable and very likely to be super dry this year. Really not good. The planning that they are using to anticipate cuts, they are considering 20 to 50% reduction in CAP allocation to the city of Tucson, currently anticipating 20% cuts. And I'll get back to that discussion in a minute. I wanted to mention that they're also working with City of Phoenix, what they call a handshake agreement, to talk about getting water to smaller communities. The next portion of the meeting focused on a public affairs update with Natalie DeRouche, their public affairs person, gave a very, very robust discussion on their many parts of their public communication. Just a few of them include community engagement and education, but then also working with governments and stakeholders. And they have partnerships with a lot of different groups, people on contract and different community groups around the area. So they also have that sort of communication. Then they also do executive advisory communication to other people in other parts of the city, and then they work to just strategically align with the mayor and council's objectives and a number of other things. There was a robust discussion about communicating about CAP shortfalls and about the water urgency in our region, and a general feeling of, really a question. How are you addressing this, with the public and internally? How are you saying you're going to meet this challenge? And their response has been consistently that it's part of their planning, that it's one water planning. And that it's folded into this sort of long-term view, and they've been thinking about possibility of cap reductions for a long time. And then the discussion evolved to say, well, that may fall flat to the public because we're basically saying we've planned for this and we're fine. And yet the public is getting, and we are all in the midst of hearing about how this is an unprecedented reduction and a long time coming, but the response from the city of Tucson Water, how is that meeting that today's discussion about that? And it was a very interesting result of that. They talked about their challenges being part of the larger water negotiations at the state level and at the federal level, and how it is very challenging to be outspoken about all the ways you're going to cope when you're saying you need the water. So that's a conundrum. Like, how do you put that out there? And it was good for the advisory committee to hear about this, but also to know that they are taking a lot of steps. We just may not be hearing about them as much, and hopefully we will hear more about them over time. So they're in a very tricky situation right now where with negotiations, all the desert states are trying to say they need the water. And yet at the federal level and interstate level, there's a perception that that desert states are very good at reducing their water level, their water needs, and that they have a lot of water in agriculture that they could pull out, or that, you know, they have coping mechanisms. And so they're in a really tough spot. I thought that was really an interesting discussion and something that we can all think about. I also would add that reclaimed water and water purification to drinking water standards is here. It is, they're planning, they have big funding to do that. And it's something that the department, and I'm sure is in discussions about. This is something that is one of their bigger mechanisms, that and stormwater capture, both of which were just really miles away 15 years ago, are now really on the forefront of what we're doing with water. So I thought it was a great meeting. Any questions or discussion? All right. All right, we'll move on to future agenda items. Does anybody have future agenda items?
So this is what is for next.
Oh, yes, let's look at that.
So for June, we have the director's update as always, the quarterly vacancy review and elimination update with Doreen, the election results, and the CREO update by Max. It's on the schedule, as well as the effluent generation and utilization report.
That's all Max. It's the Max.
All Max.
All the time.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
And then we have continuing discussion
Yeah, I'll include that continuing discussion
like we did today.
for the 2026 financial plan review.
Perfect.
So I will not be here next month. I'll try and call in. I'll be on the road.
Okay.
So I might be online, but I don't want to run a meeting.
Be careful driving if you're in Tennessee.
Yeah, no kidding. No, I'll be driving
Watch those Google Maps.
southward, but I might be in range. I think I probably will. And if I am, I'll try and get, I don't want to miss the max hour.
It'll be
But
recorded.
so Scott will be chairing our meeting next month.
Yes.
An hour with.
Okay, any other future agenda items? We do need to have the PAC 208 plan come down here when it's fine.
They're
Yeah.
on the agenda.
Yeah. Yeah, but with everybody else, so it might take more time.
Yeah, they're right here. In November. We have them separated out from,
Oh, okay.
yeah, we
We
split it up
separated,
because it
okay.
was too much.
It was cheers last year. Okay, perfect. All right, moving on to the call to the audience. Any audience members show up at the 9th hour here?
I'm gonna be the audience right now, just so I
Okay.
use that opportunity, just to reiterate, it's a lot of time you guys put in to help this committee and help the county, and it just shows your leadership in the community and your civic responsibilities. And with that, so truly an appreciation and thank you for always good feedback and varying opinions and perspectives. It's very helpful for us in our bigger picture of charting our direction and stuff, so keep it up. With that, I just, remembered I had these, so I'm gonna offer them up if anybody wants them, but because of all of you committee members that have the roles and networks in the community, the county, I've been given a bunch of these prosperity initiatives, it's more and more people are struggling with, the cost of living and everything that's going on. So there's just little tabletop cards that you can take if you want one, share it with people. It has a little, what do you call your little scan, your little box?
QRQ.
Yeah, so,
Can I see?
yeah, here's a whole bunch of them, so pass them around if anybody wants to, share them with others and just stay up on what the county is doing and Board of Supervisors and the Prosperity Initiative. Good stuff, and you guys are the right people because you're very active in the community and we appreciate it. And then I also will just add, we received another conflict of interest document and, because we have representatives on this, by the way, it's a 13-member committee and we had 12 members because there's one vacancy with Claire moving over to the CWAC assigned position. There's a vacancy on Supervisor Allen's position, so they're working with us to fill that spot. So we should get back to 13, but it's great. There's 12 members, and guess how many people are here today? 12 members. So thank you for finding time in your hectic schedules to do this. But with the conflict of interest, because, we are talking a lot about the Santa Rita Resource Recovery Facility and all of that project. And there are engineering firms that may, be interested in pursuing that. So we just have to be careful that if you're a potential benefactor or a key stakeholder in some of these topics, help us remember when maybe you should refrain from voting or commenting or something. And then we also have representatives of some of our water companies that are benefactors or involved with the relationship with wastewater. So just help us remember when we have our agenda items, which ones you know when to say no type of thing. So that's all I just throw in there.
Good. Well, you're welcome.
Yeah, all right.
It's good. It's great to be here, part of this committee. All right, any other call to the audience? Hearing none, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a
Second.
Second, okay, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Aye. Any opposed? All right, we'll see you, next month, or I won't, but I'll see you, but you won't see me. All right, take care. Have a
Thank you
good-
all. Have a good week.
Have a good day, everyone.
Thank you.
Figure out this, what is this?
It's the prosperity